Forced to work from home by your employer? Laid off or feeling depressed at home? Do you want to make money working from anywhere? We'll show you how to do it from your couch. It's time for another episode of the Work From Home Show. Coming to you from their homes in Austin, Texas and Tampa, Florida, here are your hosts, Adam and Naresh.
Welcome to another episode of the Work From Home Show. All our homeboys, homegirls, home trans, all the homies out there staying with us today. This is your host, Adam Schrader, along with Naresh Vissa.
So, Adam, let's talk some business. I want to share a piece, not a piece, but some comments from renowned billionaire bond investor Jeffrey Gundlach, who runs Double Line Capital, and he had some comments that I've brought up on this show. They were just opinions on my end, but he sees the potential for a wave of more higher end unemployment hitting white collar workers making more than $100,000 per year because employers are increasingly questioning the value that these employers bring. And I think I brought up on a previous episode that my prediction was that the work from home movement would make employers realize that middle managers, so these are exactly these types of people, the $100,000 per year middle manager essentially. My prediction was that these people would be out of jobs. And the reason
he's not saying their jobs are going to disappear. He's saying the workers are going to disappear and they're going to be replaced.
Yeah, so no, he's not necessarily saying. Let's go through the article. Or why don't you explain what he said?
What he's saying in this article in Yahoo Finance is that there's going to be a lot of $100,000 middle managers who are crappy managers, but, because they're in the office and showing face and, shaking hands and going out to, lunches with the execs, they think they're doing a good job, but then they're going to be discovered whenever they're working from home that they do a terrible job actually managing people. And so it sounds like he thinks they're going to get laid off, and the younger people who are hungry and who are able to be productive from home, prove themselves, they're going to move up and, take their jobs, essentially. So it's not, the immigrants coming in and taking our jobs. Now it's those crazy young kids coming in, doing the work and stealing our jobs.
Well, here's where I think there's a disconnect in not understanding what he's saying, but in predicting what's going to happen. So my prediction from the start was these people were going to lose their jobs. Yes, the younger people who they manage are going to take their jobs, but they would not be hiring new people to fill it, because the people who are getting laid off, they weren't doing much to begin with. So it's not like, okay, let's promote these people at the bottom to take what these previous people were doing, because they weren't doing anything.
But I still think they're going to see what the manager was supposed to be doing as important. So I think they'll fill the gaps. I think they'll just be more likely, they'll be more willing to fire people if they prove that they can't handle it. I think the idea of a middle manager, and we've talked about it with some other people, is the idea of a middle manager might even become more important as you're managing people across different environments, not just in the office. And having a good middle manager is going to be somebody who's worth money. But it's just, you've got the people.
I don't see that. So when I worked, I've worked at some really, really large corporations. And the problem with these, so Gundlach is talking about corporations. He's not talking about, a small business with 10 people.
Right.
He's talking about large corporations. And when I worked at a huge corporation, JP Morgan, at the time, I think they had like 150,000 employees worldwide. And now I want to say they're probably past 300,000 employees worldwide. And I was every day I'd go into the office and I'd be like, what the heck are these people doing? And people would tell me straight up, they're like, oh, I'm managing people. And I'm like, how? Like, you're not talking to anyone. You're just like in a cubicle, playing solitaire. Like, how? And why do these people, why does this 35-year-old, PhD from Harvard need to be managed to told, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that? Like, he already knows what to do. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so what Gundlach said is, and I quote, "What people may have learned for white-collar services jobs, in particular during the work-from-home lockdown situation, I've talked to a lot of my peers on this, kind of learned who was really doing the work and who was not doing as much work as it looked like on paper that they might have been doing," Gundlach said. Gundlach has witnessed this at his company DoubleLine, where people running certain groups haven't been as responsive, while junior members on their team have stepped up. Gundlach says, quote, "I wonder where they've gone. It seems like the people who work for them are constantly in contact with me doing all this work. And some of the supervisory middle management people, I'm starting to wonder if I really need them at all. And this is just a one sample thing," he added. So he did give that caveat. This is a one sample thing. But again, I saw it firsthand. My brother sees it firsthand at his company. This is something that we've been talking about for a while.
Yeah, I won't dispute that there's definitely probably more middle managers than are needed in the world. But I mean, I think he'll find if he doesn't have any middle management and he's running that company and every single employee is coming to him, to talk about their project, he's not going to want that. He's going to be hiring, he's going to figure out who actually can take charge of a team and make a team work, and then he'll promote them to that $100,000 job.
Yeah, well, what he clearly said here is he's going to be promoting those analysts.
Yeah.
The point I'm making here is he's not, and look, it's a tough economy right now. It's not a time to be job hunting. It's not easy. And so he has the folks who he's promoting basically taking on double duty. So the work that they were doing before, plus the work that they were already doing that their bosses were supposed to be doing, he's just promoting them on paper from like analyst or associate to, manager or, assistant vice president or vice president or whatever their title is. And so that's the point that I'm making. I mean, we see all the time during recessions, companies don't hire more during recessions or depressions. They cut, and the responsibility, I mean, I think you went through this when you were at Biz Radio, they cut, which meant more work for you, right?
Yep.
And that's the way companies operate. So you became, all those people above you, like those middle managers, they were gone, and you became, like
everything.
The guy who had everything. And that's what I'm saying, where Gundlach clearly says the younger people, they're more motivated, they do more work, they're more responsive, they're responding to his emails or picking up his phone calls. I mean, he's just literally promoting them on paper, but their job function is going to essentially be the same. And the point I'm making, which I've been making for years, it was a prediction of mine, is that I think this is going to be a permanent thing. Because with work from home, you are able to find out who's performing, who's not performing. You don't have that middle manager coming to your office, bullshitting you and shooting the shit, like so many of these corporations have been doing, or so many people at these corporations have been doing and getting away with it during the good times.
I mean, I agree with you. You're going to have to show your value, like we've talked about numerous times on this show. It's a prove it game now.
Well, the 60-year-old investor said he's hearing similar things from his peers. Quote, "Everybody feels this same way." Okay, there we go. He said everybody feels the same way. Quote, "They feel like this is sort of like Warren Buffett's thing. When the tide goes out, you find out who is swimming naked." I'm going to read that again. When the tide goes out, you find out who is swimming naked. It's a Warren Buffett thing. I mean, when you actually have to respond quickly and people below middle management are actually doing the responding, they start to get credit for the work, end quote. And that's one of the things in a company, not just a corporation, but that's an important factor when it comes to promotion. It's who gets credit. And people, I see it all the time. People are fighting. Oh, I did this. I should take credit for that. This person is taking credit for all the work, even though they didn't do anything. And again, Adam, I know you've worked with some people like that. But again, work from home, really easy to see who's sending the emails, who's doing the work, whose name is on the stuff.
If you have team members who are doing that, about saying, I'm not getting credit for this and give me credit for that, it means the manager's not doing their job because they should be doing a good enough job that everybody feels like they're getting the credit they need. So, I mean, that's just screaming, I'm really not doing my job. Because in this case, like he's saying, he's sending out the emails. If he's sending out the emails, the people on, like, for example, if it's my team, they should know, oh, I don't need to respond to this because Adam knows what I've been doing, and Adam's going to tell him everything he needs to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on, Jeffrey Gundlach says one of the consequences of the lockdowns is that it's short-term deflationary. He believes commercial real estate prices will go down as companies shift from an office to work from home model permanently. So we've obviously talked about this in depth. So listen to our previous episodes about that. Gundlach also makes a case that it's wage deflationary, and I'm going to quote him.
That's what everybody wants to hear.
I think this is a prediction that I made as well, but let me quote him. Quote, if a $100,000 white-collar worker gets laid off, I think that they just stare in the mirror in the morning with just fear in their eyes, looking at their own eyes. Because what are you going to do? He said. I'm going to stop the quote right there before I continue, because this is where I said I think this is the end of middle management. Gundlach is saying 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you could just say, oh, I'm just going to go get a middle management job somewhere else at some other big corporation.
Yep.
But now he says they just stare in the mirror in the morning with fear in their eyes. Because what are you going to do? A lot of people don't have any savings, not enough savings. If a certain swath of the employment population has a significant layoff in the echo of the pandemic, which I think is still coming, then they're probably going to be looking for a job, and there won't be many openings relative to the unemployment pool with that type of a skill set. What's a skill set? Managing people, which to me was never a real skill set. He says, quote, obviously, I think these people will take another job with a big pay cut, he continued. If you're making $100,000 and you're staring at the abyss of no income and you have minimal savings, de minimis savings. Did he actually say that? Who
Probably.
Says that on air?
Fancy guys who run $165 billion bond funds.
Okay.
You gotta prove you know silver dollar words.
Okay, yeah, he says if you have you're staring at the abyss of no income and you have de minimis savings, especially if you have a family to feed, I think that $75,000 similar job would look pretty attractive even as an interim step. And he's absolutely right, because I actually have people in my family who were laid off or contracts cut, and then the company came back and said, hey, we want you back, but it's going to be at like half of what you were making before. And what can you say? No? Like...
So let's just get this out there. The American worker got a raise for the first time in like 40 years over the past 2 or 3 years, and now we're going through a major wage deflationary period. It's if you don't think this is going to impact the United States for years to come, you're out of your mind.
Well, he says, what's more, the shift to permanent work from home is deflationary too. If someone can do the same job in a lower cost environment, like Boise, Idaho, compared to San Francisco. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. So we've talked about that on previous episodes. I think the episode, that was the episode we did with the work from home, Liam Martin. He talked about essentially wage deflation, Boise, Idaho versus Silicon Valley versus New York City versus, Florida. You're obviously going to get paid less in lower cost of living areas like Boise, Idaho. So that's another reason if you're going to hire, or we are going remote, working from home, wages are going to go down. And what do I have to say about that, Adam? I'm a free market person, and this is something that I have been, I don't want to say calling for, but predicting, because I see it personally when we outsource overseas to India and Philippines and all these places. And I'm thinking, how on earth is the American worker going to be able to compete with these guys? Legitimately, either the wage has to go down or the job has to be eliminated. And now we're seeing kind of a mix of both.
Yay. It's going to be a fun ride.
I don't think this is a bad thing. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just saying this is the way a market works. Right? So this is the way a market works. This is the way a business works. And I think in the end, this is actually going to be the market's going to adjust. It's going to work itself out. And down the road, we are going through a very, very deflationary time period. But down the road, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, I do expect wages to come back up as the companies start becoming more profitable again, and they have more cash on hand, and they're able to pay out bonuses, and they're able to increase salaries. It's all about value creation and profitability. If you're not profitable, sorry, you don't have much money to spend to pay people. That's just business 101. If you're a business that makes $100,000 a year in net profit before paying your employees, and you have one employee who you pay $40,000 to, well, that only leaves $60,000 to you. Now, if you have 3 employees and you promise them that you pay them $40,000 each, you can't even make payroll, right? So we're going through a period right now where there's, literally, if you just look at the publicly traded companies and their earnings and how terrible the earnings are, terrible. Literally, the only way they're going to survive is if the government bails them out. What are they supposed to? They have no choice but to cut workers, cut salaries, and to me personally, I'm a free market enthusiast. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's the way that creative destruction is applied, and the market resets, and that's why the U.S. is where it is today, and not, 300, 400 years ago. It's not the same that it was back then. That's how progress is made.
And we're not going to go into it today, but that's why we need a jobs guarantee.
Yeah, we already did an episode.
I know.
And so we talked about that. I'm a fan of that, but again, I'm not a fan of wasted jobs. We already talked about that. Jobs where you have to go dig holes. But, it is what it is, and that's why we started this show. We didn't create this show so that you could just sit at home and listen to us banter with each other all day. We created this show because we wanted you to actually get the skills so that you can make money, so that you don't have to be dependent on your employer, or you don't have to be dependent on one client. You can create value for yourself and create wealth for yourself and attain financial freedom. That's why we created the show. That's what it's all about. And so if you're going to be beholden to an employer and you're making $100,000 like Gundlach is talking about right now, and your employer comes back to you and says, hey, you know what? I realize that your job, you're just really not that important, but I don't want to lay you off. So we're going to cut your salary from $100,000 to $50,000. Well, my response is you didn't prove that you were valuable to your employer. You have to prove your value. You have to show that you are worth every penny, and that you're so good that if they want to cut your pay in half, you have the leverage. Leverage is so important in business. You have the leverage to go somewhere else, to go to a competitor, to start your own business. You want to create leverage for yourself so that you're, again, not beholden to somebody else telling you that you can't do this or you can do that. That's the entire reason why I got into business for myself and started my business, so that I'm not beholden to that, and really why we started this show, to help you guys.
Well, we're going to keep it nice, short, and simple for y'all today. That is the end of this episode of the Work From Home Show. Check us out at workfromhomeshow.com. That's workfromhomeshow.com. If you have any questions you want to ask us or anything you think we should talk about on the show, reach out to us. hello@workfromhomeshow.com. That's hello@workfromhomeshow.com. And until next time, keep on working from home.